everyone, and welcome to our second New Economy Live event of 2024, and our first in-person New Economy Live since 2001. We're really excited to have you here for the future of aerospace in Calgary. It's so good to see a room full for our first foray into in-person events in a few years. My name is Koplovich. I'm the Director of Strategy at Calgary Economic Development, and I'll be the host and MC for the event this morning. The team at Calgary Economic Development is really stoked for this conversation. We have incredible panelists and an extra special presentation on possible futures of the aerospace industry. As always, I begin this event with a land acknowledgement. We are all gathered here this morning in Calgary, or what was known as Mohkinstsis. This place is on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is comprised of the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, as well as the Îyârhe Nakoda nations, which are comprised of the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney First Nations, and the Tsuut'ina Nation. This territory is also home to the Otipemisiwak Métis government and the Calgary Nose Hill District 5 and Calgary Elbow District 6. I also acknowledge all nations, Indigenous and non, who live, work, and play on this land and who honor and celebrate this territory. For those of you joining us for the first time, our New Economy Live series was created to bring together our community members and businesses to learn about our city's long-term action plan for our economy. The action plan for our economy guides the growth of key sectors by focusing on 5 drivers of our economy, which are talent, innovation, business environment, livability, and brand. Our community's aspiration is for Calgary to be the place where bright minds and big ideas come together with an unmatched spirit to help solve global challenges. A place that stands out not because we have all the answers, but because we'll help each other create unexpected possibilities with our ingenuity and can-do spirit. The events in our New Economy Live series are free of charge to make sure they are accessible to as many people as possible, underpinned by the latest research on a topic relevant to Calgary and feature inspiring leaders in our city. Since we began our New Economy Live series, we've hosted over 14 events attended by over 5,000 people, sharing stories of Calgary and the amazing work of our community partners and businesses contributing to Calgary's long-term economic prosperity. Today's event will begin with a presentation by Rachelle Bugeaud, our Manager of Foresight at Calgary Economic Development. She'll be sharing long-range possibilities for the future of the aerospace sector. You might call it a world premiere of these foresights, and we're so excited to share them with you this morning. After Rachelle's presentation, we'll move to a panel discussion moderated by Amy Smith, Business Development Manager of Aerospace and Logistics at Calgary Economic Development. Amy will be joined by 4 incredible panelists from the Calgary Airport Authority, Canadian Council for Sustainable Aviation Fuels, SAIT, and the newly announced Aerospace Innovation Hub, which you're all in today, for an hour of discussion and audience Q&A. My final order of business before we dive into the program is housekeeping. In case of an emergency or a fire, there are 3 emergency exits, and I swear I won't do you all know it. They are this way. There are 3 emergency exits, 1 at the back of the room. I'm trying really hard. 1 out those exits that you came in, and 1 in the back. The washrooms are located out those doors. Now I just have to do it. Out those doors and to the left, or out those doors and to the right. And if you could please put your phone on silent so that others can enjoy the program, that would be much appreciated. And if you need to take a call, please do so outside the hall, and we'll make sure to let you back in. Today's event is also being recorded and will be publicly available online in the coming days. With all of the housekeeping out of the way, I want to invite Rachelle to the front. Rachelle is our resident futurist at Calgary Economic Development. With a bachelor's and master's degree in design, specializing in strategic foresight and innovation, Rachelle has garnered awards from the Association of Professional Futurists and Academia for her impactful futures work. Having delivered foresight to organizations including ATB Financial, the Government of Canada, the Government of the United Arab Emirates, and Silicon Valley Venture Studios, Rachelle excels in making sense of change and uncovering disruptive innovation pathways. With a background in design, she has helped these organizations translate future findings into strategic plays and creative solutions. In her current role, Rachelle explores future evolutions of sectors key to the city of Calgary to inform present actions and inspire a broader conversation about change. When not engaged in design or foresight work, she enjoys cycling and exploring the depths of the internet. Over to you, Rachelle.
Great. All right. So first off, thank you so much for choosing to spend your morning with me exploring the potential futures of the aerospace and aviation industry. So I have a pretty jam-packed presentation and only 10 or 15 minutes to do it. So I'm going to jump right in by first outlining what it is that I do. Because when I say I'm a futurist and I do foresight, I often elicit some blank stares. So essentially, in a nutshell, what I do is that I leverage the potential that's inherent in the future. So I specifically time travel to the future, if you will, looking for possibilities, risks, considerations. And I bring all of these back to the present so that we can make better decisions today. So when you're thinking of the future as well, you might be wondering, just how far out are you thinking? Are you thinking 10, 20, 50, 100? And the answer is I let the research kind of dictate just how far out I go. Because every slice of the future serves a specific has a specific purpose rather. So the nearer term futures are things we want to act on and monitor and prepare for. The further out stuff is things that we should just be considering, imagining, wondering about. So if you want to do this on your own and to kind of reveal a little bit how it is that we're doing it at Calgary Economic Development, we kind of follow these 4 rough steps. So the first one is to really identify what's what. So what's what in aerospace and aviation? So how does the system currently work? How is it? Who are the actors? Why is it the way that it is? And we do this first to kind of sense make, get a sense of what is aerospace today. We then look at all of the trends, the signals, the things that are changing in aviation, in the world of flight, and we assess and coalesce these into larger trends. The third thing is that we're going to use these trends, bounce them off one another, to build out these future perspectives. So these are all kind of possibilities. We're not saying that this is going to happen, but we're saying there's nothing to indicate that these things could not happen. And the final step is to bring it back to the present. So you can spend as much time as you want in the future, but it's all kind of worthless unless you bring it back to today. And so that is what the foresight helps us do. It helps us figure out what should we be doing differently today. And specifically at CED, we're using foresight to help inform some foresight-informed sector strategies. So how we build out and choose to action things. We're also using foresight to help anticipate future talent demands and needs from our community. We're also going to be using foresight to assess and identify future fit businesses or businesses that have the potential to become exponential or big in the future. And also, we're leveraging the foresight work to help us better identify strategic initiatives that could have very large catalytic impact in the future. So to jump right into the future of aerospace and aviation, we did a lot of research into as many nooks and crannies of what is changing in the world of flight. And we specifically look at things beyond the Calgary borders. So we're looking at global evolutions, things that are fringe, weird, things that maybe don't even sit well with us, maybe aren't even aerospace. And so there are more than these 8, but we kind of created these 8 big mega trends to make it a lot easier to understand. So these hopefully should not be anything new, but there's artificial intelligence, advanced engineering and manufacturing, and everything that has to do with materials, new propulsion systems, new ways of designing things, super and hypersonic flights, urban air mobility, decarbonization, sustainability, also the commercialization of space and access of space, automation and robotics, and then the last one, put digital linkages, which is more about that Internet of Things, the sensors, kind of the smart play. So what we do with these trends is that they're all nice if you evaluate them on their own, but they're even better if you get to bounce them off one another and see how they augment or mitigate one another. So for example, if you were to take Decarbonization, bounce it off of urban air mobility, and then look at those digital linkages. What types of new implications come out of those opportunities? What becomes possible? And also, what types of repercussions, first order, second order, third order implications might come out of that? So that is where we spend a lot of our time, is looking at those possibilities. And it leads us to this fun question that is more of a thought exercise. So really spending the time to think of what if. And this is really to stretch our thinking of what we consider the future of aerospace and aviation to be. So I will be presenting some provocations. So remember, provocations, not predictions. So these are not meant to necessarily sit well with you. Some of them you might actually hate, and that is okay. But I would ask you to consider, of the following things, what is leading you today to believe that these things will never come to be? So the first one is to kind of think about how virtual reality in the mid to distant future might impact the ways that we travel or the movement of goods and the expectation of movement of goods. What if, maybe more in an urban setting, strip malls were reimagined as urban flight centers, somewhere you can go grab a flight? What if drones could hitch rides on cars, trains, buses, other mobility devices to expand their range? And maybe, what if blue sky preserves start to become something that we see more and more around the world in order to protect areas of our sky from too many buzzing, flying things? And then finally, what if pilots could work from home, or maybe are expected to work from home? And should I dare say, maybe even pilot more than one flight at once? What are the possibilities for the future, right? So once again, out of all of these sort of wacky things, what's indicating that these things could not come to be? So to give you a bit more kind of structure and a clearer idea of what might be coming our way, kind of prepared just a very, very high level, like 3 bullet points per slice of time, to start to imagine the future of aerospace building up into something maybe a little different than today. So immediately present, we know that sustainability, decarbonization is a very big thing. The digital transformation. And also, there's been quite a large increase in drone-based services. Next up, we might see more of that urban infrastructure. So those flight centers that we're kind of seeing being developed in other parts of the world. Net zero continuing to kind of build up. And then potentially more and more automated smart networks. On the horizon, so this might be 20, 30, 40 years away, we will likely be able to take faster options. So maybe hypersonic, I don't know. But we will likely be able to get from point A to point B much faster. Personal air mobility might also be something that we have to contend with in a more serious manner. For commercial flights, we might start to anticipate more experiential services that really set each other apart. And also maybe completely crewless, or maybe no humans whatsoever. Far out into the future, so this is like 50, 100 plus years out, we will likely start to see infrastructural repurposing of anything that was very car-centric, maybe evolving to become more flight-enabled. Next generation airports, something that looks completely different than what we are used to today. And so hopefully that starts to kind of paint the picture of possibilities and how they build off of each other. And once again, these are not forecasts. I am not saying that we will have faster options in 30 years, but I'm in saying that in all likelihood, it will possibly happen. So to make you feel even better about the future, there are some things that we can know with some level of certainty. So these are kind of long-term trends that have been playing out for many decades. So it's reasonable to assume that the future of aviation and aerospace will be increasingly autonomous. It will be increasingly smart or data-led, increasingly sustainable, distributed, diversified, and efficient. And further, to kind of bring it more into the niche of aerospace, there are 3 other anticipated developments. So it's reasonable to assume that in the future, there will be a diversification of aircrafts. And I use the word aircraft, but I just mean flying things. So if we're thinking of drones, personal air mobility devices, you could even consider jetpacks in here if you wanted to. But essentially, things that fly will start to look a lot different than the typical planes that we're used to seeing today. Also under this is the whole move towards decarbonization, hydrogen, electrification, different propulsion systems. The second one is about the evolution of flight centers. So the airports, how they are kind of organized, but also when it comes to automation and robotics, and also the move towards potential urban or regional air hubs, or areas to catch flights. And then the third one is that it is likely that we're going to be seeing flying things around us a lot more. So within cities, so you won't need to come to an airport to see or take a flight. So these are anticipated developments, especially more from the mid to longer term. And out of all of these things, you might already be spinning your gears and thinking like, oh, this is what this means for me, or oh, I hate that, I love this. So the point is that these are risks and opportunities together, and that they mean different things to different people, and that it's up to us to decide how we want to action them. There might be a few things here that we definitely want to mitigate or control or try to avoid developing. And so for sort of the last part of my presentation, I have these 9 sort of critical conversations, which are almost like takeaways that you can take with you home, think about it, and decide how do you think Calgary can play a role in one of these 9 things. So the first one will be about the evolution of the human role in aerospace and aviation. So if we're moving towards robotics, automation, even pilots, baggage handlers, what does that look like in the future? And how do we want to play a role in there? The faster connectivity, which is not only airplanes and flights, but also we're thinking hyperloops and land-based hyperconnectivity options. How do these start to play together, or do they compete? The new flight networks as well. So if we want to be able to sort of easily hop on something that can fly us elsewhere, what would that look like in a city? And is that something that we aspire to be? The next one is with more and more things flying above our heads and around us in cities, there are definitely security risks involved. So how do we want to sort of play in that, or mitigate it, or control it, especially if there's nefarious actors, cybersecurity risks, et cetera. The next one I have is energy systems. So this is considering a move towards sort of a decarbonized fleets. How would we sort of store and source all of the energy for potentially an electric fleet or a hydrogen fleet, considering the impacts to existing facilities? Afterwards, we have the new ways to build. So not only like different materials, but also on-demand, autonomous productions. So considering and wrapping all of that up into how is it that we want to sort of show up in that space as Calgary. The last 3, crowded skies, definitely links to security risks, but considering if more and more things are flying around us, especially in the cities, how do we start to control and give order to chaos? Sector crossover being the expectation that we will see more and more aerospace kind of bleed into other sectors. So healthcare, agriculture, we're already kind of seeing this happen, but in the future, it's going to be kind of the norm. And then finally, this is more of a long or distant term sort of a conversation to have, but if we consider the way in which the automobile has impacted the way we design our cities, will sort of more a flight-enabled system also impact the way we choose to design our cities in the future? Oops. So this is how I'm going to end kind of the presentation, is like you have homework, and the homework is to sort of take some of these ideas that were presented, have critical conversations with your friends, family, team members, so that you can really develop your own perspectives as to what do you think might become true in the future. Because I'm not saying that I am definitely the expert in this. I might be completely wrong, and that is fine. Because part of being a futurist is to be consistently scouring and looking for change and monitoring how change is evolving, so that we're not making these crystal clear bets in the future, but we're making these hunches and assumptions that we're consistently revisiting and seeing what is possible. And finally, I would really encourage you to also revisit, if you own a business, revisit your strategy with some of these foresights. Identify, are we thinking far out enough? Are we thinking bold enough? Is there something that we need to insert into our strategy to make us more future ready? And so the last sort of thing is that the future is going to happen. There's no way to control that. But what you can control is how you want to meet it. So whether you want to meet it with foresight, and whether you want to be kind of excited and proactive about meeting it. And the other thing is that you do have the power to influence its trajectory. So it's not too late, right? So I would just encourage us all to sort of get out there, look for the change, and start talking about it, start doing something about it. And that is where I'm going to end and throw it back to Kate. Thanks.
Awesome. Fantastic presentation, Rachelle. I hope that all inspired you to think more about the future possibilities of the sector. And I'm excited for the panelists to dig into some of these topics and where the sector is going. I'll invite the panelists now to the stage as I introduce them. You can all come up at the same time, and then I'll introduce you. So today we have, come on up. Yeah, awesome. Today we have with us Chris Dinsdale, President and CEO of the Calgary Airport Authority. Chris joined the Calgary Airport Authority as President and CEO in August 2023. Prior to his position with the authority, Chris held several executive roles in the airport sector over the past decade, including the Budapest Airport as Chief Financial Officer and CEO since April 2021. He also served as the Managing Director of Airport Fuel Services, the market-leading aviation fuel supply subsidiary for the Budapest Airport Services until 2020, and has also held the position of Chairman of the Supervisory Board since 2019 for the BUD Security, which operates all passenger and staff security screening activities at the Budapest Airport. Prior to joining the aviation industry, Chris worked as the Chief Financial Officer of Wild Horse Energy, and Chris moved to Hungary in 2004 to join KPMG Hungary, working in various capacities, including Director of Energy and Resource Advisory in Central and Eastern Europe. Welcome, Chris. We also have Hamid Rajani, Chair for the Center of Innovation and Research in Advanced Manufacturing and Materials and Applied Research and Innovation Services at SAIT. As an innovation leader, Dr. Rajani has devoted his career to pioneering research and innovation in advanced manufacturing and material science with over 15 years of experience spanning both industry and academia. To date, Dr. Rajani's visionary research projects and initiatives, including the Alternative Construction Technologies Hub, the Automation and Robotics Technologies Hub, and the Alberta Aerospace Research Centre, have secured awards exceeding $14 million. His laboratories at SAIT are designated as one of NATO's Diana's testing centers, facilitating the development of dissemination of unclassified dual-purpose technologies among NATO nations. His multidisciplinary teams and cutting-edge laboratories at CIRAMM are committed to advancing various industries by fostering innovation in manufacturing and materials science. Kimberly Van Vliet is the Director of the Aerospace Innovation Hub with Innovate Calgary. With over 17 years of experience in creating and facilitating cross-industry solutions worldwide, Kimberly is a passionate and visionary leader in the aerospace, defense, security, and space sectors. She's also the founder and CEO of Wave and ConvergeX, and she has enabled the transfer of commercialized technology across multiple industries, resulting in close to $2 billion in deals tracked as a result of the Congress. Currently, she serves as the Director of the Aerospace Innovation Hub at Innovate Calgary, where she is responsible for guiding the AIH as the leading resource for startups and established companies to develop, validate, and partner on their technologies. She is also a member of the Canadian delegation of the NATO Industrial Advisory Group, where she is the deputy chair of the Community of Interest for the NIAG Allied Command Transformation Unit, overseeing innovation, C4ISR, multi-domain operations, digital transformation, logistics, and sustainment. And finally, we have Geoffrey Tauvette, Executive Director at the Canadian Council for Sustainable Aviation Fuels. Geoff is a senior leader in commercial aviation and engineering professional at the forefront of airline sustainability, with more than 25 years of experience in integrating aviation fuel procurement, environment, and climate risk management, giving him a unique perspective on creating a sustainable aviation fuels market in Canada to support decarbonizing the aviation industry. His past responsibilities have centered around setting direction on aviation environmental sustainability strategies, being an industry advocate, and reducing aviation emissions through stakeholder collaborations. And finally, our moderator, Amy Smith, is the Business Development Manager for Aerospace and Logistics with Calgary Economic Development. She works with business, government, post-secondaries, and community partners to position Calgary as a location of choice to invest and do business for the purpose of building a more diverse and prosperous city. She has a passion for supporting the aerospace sector and telling Calgary's story. She looks forward to making connections and advancing economic opportunities to build a stronger community. Amy is an active volunteer with the Calgary Stampede and enjoys traveling and spending her weekends skiing or biking in the mountains like a true Calgarian. Amy, I'll pass the floor to you for the panel discussion.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you, Kate. That's amazing. You can tell by the introductions just the incredible caliber of panelists we have here today. So I'd just like to thank you all for joining me up here on the stage, and also to all of you in the audience who came out today. A lot of familiar faces of people that I work with in the industry, but also a lot of new and other industry representatives here today. So thank you all for joining us. I couldn't be more thrilled to see you all, and hope I get a chance to catch up with you after the panel. So without further ado, we had a fantastic presentation from Rachelle. That's incredible. I love all of your provocations. Is that? Thanks. Not predictions. But the first question I want to ask the panel today is, during Rachelle's presentation, was there anything that surprised you or challenged your previous understanding of the industry's current trajectory? And are there any additional trends you see emerging in the immediate future? So does anyone want to lead? I'm going to ask all of you this.
I can.
Great.
Yeah, I can go ahead. So this was perfect timing because I just came back from Virginia, from Allied Command, our North American headquarters. I was in meetings there. And we had a strategic foresight presentation from a NATO perspective. And I have to say, you were bang on with a lot of the stuff that you predicted. I think what they talked about a little bit in more depth was about the breakdown of the climate and cognitive effects of that, and the breakdown of society, because of course they're also approaching it from a more militaristic and defense perspective. But you hit it pretty good, so it was very good.
Excellent. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the technologies, it seems pretty spot on, and actually most of those technologies already exist right now, so there's nothing too way out there. What I was thinking more of just is that the really core topic for us is human acceptance, and how does the human play into it? So it's not a technology question per se, it becomes a human limitation factor. And that's the first time in history where we've had technologies, the steam locomotive came along and everyone hopped on board, there was no question, great. Now you're getting technologies moving so fast, and all these things, you could really do them tomorrow if you really wanted to. But are the humans ready? Don't know.
I love that, Chris, and I find that that's a big piece of this entire industry, is even awareness of just the industry and its presence here in the city, in the province, and how strong we are on the national and global level, and recognized, Canada is recognized as a global leader in aerospace. But we have to get that message out more and more, and particularly with where the industry is headed around UAVs, and RPAS, which is remotely piloted aerial systems, for those of you that aren't from the sector. Who wants to go next? Hamid?
I'll go next.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I think Rachelle did a really good job, so there's not a lot to add, but I think there is one trend that I'm personally passionate about, which is the intersection of advanced engineering and artificial intelligence. And that would be predictive maintenance, something that's already happening, and it could happen more in the immediate future. So predictive maintenance basically is when we create a digital copy of a physical asset like an aircraft, and then we add a lot of sensors, we collect a lot of data, we feed the data into machine learning models, and then the machine learning model is going to predict failure. So this is going to be a proactive approach for maintenance instead of waiting until something happens, which could be safer, the future of aerospace, and of course, smaller downtime, which is going to save a lot of industries a lot of money. So that's again a trend that is going to happen, in my opinion, in the immediate future, and a lot of companies are already doing it.
Great. Go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I'm last. Yeah. I live in the sustainable fuels world, and we think that that's a necessary key to allow all these technologies to develop. So that gives us sort of a license to reduce our emissions and move forward. And being an engineer as well, I think I unfortunately live in a little bit of the risk piece of this, right? And I hear often there's a huge risk to the business to start testing these technologies and living with it. And I think that's something we need to get our heads around. It's like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to train the folks to do it? And on the international level as well, are other countries that we're going to fly into at the same sort of capacity level of integrating that technology as well? So there's, lots of things to sort of solve as we move forward in this area.
Thank you all. Great thoughts for all of us to think about. So I'm going to start with Kim for my first question, and just note that it's so exciting to be here today in the home of Calgary's new Aerospace Innovation Hub. So thank you for having us. Very grateful. And of course, grateful for the Calgary Airport Authority and partners WestJet in being the first partners in this Aerospace Innovation Hub, partnered with Innovate Calgary. So thank you all. Kim, can you share a little bit more about the hub's role in the ecosystem and your vision for fostering research, innovation, and collaboration? Recognizing it's still early days, but what does success look like for you here?
Thanks, Amy. And yes, welcome to everybody to our new home. If you have questions, I'm going to point out my team really quickly if you have any other questions. So James Raki is here, and way in the back. And we have Omar. So where's Omar? I can't see him. He's somewhere here. And then, of course, Nima is also here. So they're walking around, and feel free to ask them questions as well. So, really excited about this because Innovate Calgary has given us carte blanche to do what we need to do to make this a hub, a global hub. And that's kind of our vision, is to make this, when people think aerospace plus, they think of Calgary, they think of Alberta, they think of what we can do in and around this province. And also what we can do nationally and internationally, and how we can contribute. And so already we've been entertaining companies from around the world who have been coming in asking to talk further about how they can participate, what they can do. And the nice thing is with this is that we can make it work however we want to make it work. And so having the experience of seeing different innovation hubs around the world and seeing how aerospace communities have formed in different parts of the nation as well, we're going to take the best of all of those and combine it here. And just because Calgary is the Aerospace Innovation Hub, it does not mean that there's other opportunities for the rest of the province, which I think is really important to note, because we're approaching it from a very holistic perspective. So we're looking to have large and small companies that play or want to play in the aerospace, aerospace defense and security sector and have opportunities or want to have a sandbox that they can test items on and work at and fail fast so that they can go on to that next level. So that's really what we're trying to do, is make sure that they have the opportunity to do what they need to do, fail fast, and get on to that next thing so that they can be a success. Because we're very fortunate here to have, through the University of Calgary, produce the most amount of successful startups into industry in the nation. So we're going to work with that as well.
Fantastic. And recent investments into the hub from Prairie's Economic Development Canada, who are here today, and of course OSIF, Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, supporting the hub's evolution. So we're excited to see what comes next, Kim. I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and we're going to go back to the technology landscape. So technology, especially automation and artificial intelligence, are quite top of mind in many industries. How do you see these emerging technologies shaping the future of airport operations and business?
Yeah, I mean, I think the future is much closer than we all think, actually. I always use this example. I mean, if you go back to Total Recall, awesome movie, but the original one for us old timers. So with Arnie there, and he's walking down that corridor, and he's got those two concrete walls on each side, and he's just, he just looks like he's walking down a corridor, but he's actually, you flip to the other side of that concrete, and you can see his skeleton, you can see his weapons in this case. And it becomes like a kind of a seamless process. And I think that's very much coming. And I think when you look at it at an airport, biometrics is coming. Now, are we willing to accept that? That's the human factor again. Because it's on all of our phones, it's in your pocket right now. But why do you need to check in anymore? If you don't have a bag, why do you need anything? Why do you need to even go through a gate? Why do you need to be checked before you board? Why don't they just stop you if you're not the right person? And so I think this is very, very much coming. And I think that what we've seen in some parts of the world is that it's the limitation of the humans. Again, within the EU, it's GDPR, it's privacy protection. And that's slowing down the whole thing. And so how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that database of all that critical data that we all have? Our faces, our fingerprints, our DNA. Pretty thorny topics there. Do we need parking lots in the future? Should we be investing in a multi-story car park? Probably not. Probably in 10 years, your car goes home. You just tell it to go home and you go on holiday. That's probably where it's heading. It's close. And so, yeah, I think the technology impact of airports is going to be massive. But it's going to be the human factor that we all need to pay attention to.
I agree, and thanks, Chris. I never thought when I was a child watching the Jetsons that we might actually be in a world where we're all traveling around by our eVTOLs or our vehicles in the air. And I always talk about the infrastructure on ground and on Earth here, but we're going to need more sophisticated infrastructure in the sky because it's going beyond these jets that we see here, but also the UAV and the RPAS space. So thanks for that. And just one other note is we just hosted in Calgary the Alberta Aviation Council conference, Sunday to Tuesday. And the whole theme of the conference was aerospace and aviation is now. The future of aviation and aerospace is now, pardon me. So next, I'm going to go over to you, Jeff, and I'm going to say, what is the status of Sustainable Aviation Fuels, or SAF, as we refer to, in terms of commercial availability and widespread adoption? How does Sustainable Aviation Fuels contribute to a net zero economy?
So I'll start off by saying I really think we could put ourselves on the map if we could decarbonize the two hubs we have here. And of all the places in Canada, Alberta has all the right stuff to make that happen. We have the feedstock, the convergence of all the feedstocks that can be used to make into this new fuel. And the advantage of SAF is it's not only low carbon, but we call it drop-in. So we don't need to reinvest in engines. We don't need to reinvest in the infrastructure. And again, this is good for us for a while while we wait for all these cool new technologies to come in on the other side. We can't forget that obviously that will switch one day. Where we are with it, though, is still far away. It's we're still challenged with not having the right environment to invest in. There's a lot of building of the supply chains that need to occur as well. And again, these are all strengths that I think that play into Alberta's core, raison d'être, if you will, and why we could be leaders in this area. But it would be cool if we could put that in place, and we can. We know how to make it. We could make it tomorrow if we wanted to. We just need to figure out the cost, how to bring it here, and how to make sure that aviation gets a piece of that. And I really think that would drive your innovation hub to new levels if we had access to it. But we're far behind. The world is still producing very little of it. Everyone in the world is trying to support this because it is our only way to really reduce emissions quickly. So I think Canada is going to be challenged unless it takes some bold actions to ensure that we just don't end up sending all our stuff to other countries to produce into higher value products, and we have to buy it back at additional costs. That'd be a very sad day if we had to do that again. So lots of work, and this is why we're working through an ecosystem. That's what C-SAF is. We've developed our own ecosystem with all the players across the SAF value chain. And really the key here for Canada is like working together. We are still small compared to the world. We need to work together to make this work.
Thanks, Jeff. And I love how you weaved in how the hub can play a role in advancing that adoption. And so thank you. Hamid, over to you. Can you share the role of applied research and innovation services, what we refer to as ARIS, at SAIT in the aerospace industry and its contribution to industry research? Is there anything you can share about current, ongoing, or upcoming innovations being worked on related to the sector?
Sure, Amy. Before I answer your question, I want to say how much I personally appreciate the work that you're doing, Amy, and the team at the Calgary Economic Development to facilitate the conversation around aerospace, right, and the future of aerospace in the province. So going back to your question, for those of you who don't know about SAIT, SAIT has a research department. More than 100 talented researchers are working on a daily basis providing innovation services to the industry. And I'm part of that team. Specifically, I'm focused on advanced manufacturing and materials, which is basically industry agnostic. So we can provide services to a wide range of industries, but a few years ago, strategically, we decided to focus on a few industries, and one of them was aerospace and defense. And that decision has led to some interesting initiatives over the past few years. And if I want to name two of them, one would be the Alberta Aerospace Research Center. We call it the ARC. And the second one is our recent success in joining the NATO Diana network, which if I get a chance, I'll talk about that more today. But I want to give you a little bit of highlight about the ARC, the Alberta Aerospace Research Center. So a few years ago, we talked to some key players in the ecosystem, in the aerospace ecosystem, understanding their needs, and based on the information that we gathered, we decided to establish this research center at SAIT, which is brand new. We got some amazing support from the PERISCAN, Canada Foundation for Innovation, and the Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Trade. And that support has allowed us right now to create two research programs at SAIT. So we have the Advanced Manufacturing Research Program for Aerospace and the Advanced Materials Research Program. And we already have some amazing projects, under these two programs. If I have time right now, I can go for 2 minutes and give you a little bit of information about some of these projects. For example, we are establishing a dedicated aerospace composite lab at SAIT. And what really differentiates this project from similar composite labs in Canada is our focus on advanced high-performance composite materials. If that project is successful, which I believe should be, that lab will be one of the only few places in Canada that would be able to do research and develop advanced composite materials. And we know how important that is for defense and aerospace. Another project that we are working on is using robots and advanced materials for large-size 3D printing of components for aerospace. You probably heard in the news a few months ago about the rocket that was 3D printed, all of it, and it was launched into the space. If you look at that rocket, it was big. So it was 100 feet long and 7.5 feet wide. And some of the components on that rocket are so big that you can't 3D print them using conventional 3D printing technologies. So we need to look into new solutions using robots, advanced materials to be able to print those large parts. And this is exactly what we are doing at SAIT, building the capacity to do that type of research. And speaking of robotics and automation, Rachelle mentioned in her presentation the importance of robotics and automation for the aerospace. SAIT just signed an MOU with ABB, one of the largest robotics company in the world. And as part of that agreement, they're planning to bring their first technology demonstration center ever to Calgary at SAIT. And what that means to the aerospace ecosystem is that if you're planning to adopt robotics and automation, you can come to us at SAIT and we will be able to help you to identify the right solution and implement that into your production line. So there's a lot going on right now at SAIT, exciting projects, but I believe this is just the beginning of the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hamid. And it is really so exciting. If any of you have the opportunity to tour, and I'm going to volunteer you maybe to offer some tours, but of CIRAMM, the Center for Advanced Manufacturing Materials, or CIRIS, with respect to unmanned systems, these are both phenomenal research facilities that are right here at the Calgary campus at SAIT. So thanks, Hamid.
You're welcome.
A nice tie-in, you mentioned SAIT being designated as a NATO Diana Test Center, and it leads well into the next question I'm going to have for Kim. So Kim, with your vast experience in the aerospace industry, including defense and security, how do you envision leveraging your network and expertise to drive innovation and foster collaboration through the Aerospace Innovation Hub?
Thanks, Amy. For those of you who don't know, I've been in this industry doing cross-sector commercialized technology transfer for close to 20 years now. And that's what led me to sitting at NATO in the role that I sit. So I currently am the only person in North America that sits at this particular table with the relationship between Allied Command in Norfolk, Virginia and Brussels for industry to push technology solutions and innovation into the NATO ecosystem. And so one of the groups that we do work with is NATO Diana, and so of course they focus a lot on the low TRL levels, technology readiness levels, 4 through 7, and so that's technology that will enter into the ecosystem in the next 5 to 7 years or so. But huge opportunity for technologies here in the province to participate in something like that. And we're so fortunate to have the University of Alberta as one of those test centers, as well as SAIT. So we've really spanned the province. There's no other province actually in Canada that has 2 test centers like that. So we're quite lucky here. And so with that, and then I also, by sitting there at this particular table, one of the other pillars that I look at is innovation. And so we look at innovation with the NCIA, which is the NATO Communications and Intelligence Agency, NSPA, which is our logistics and sustainment, and a variety of the Science and Technology Organization, all the other divisions of NATO as well. And so being able to sit there and listen to what they're looking for, I can bring that back to us here and say, okay, this is the direction that we're looking at, because this is the way the alliance is looking, and this is where they're wanting to go, so that we can start to do our foster the companies and do the research and development and look at how we can also enable the alliance in what they're trying to accomplish.
That's fantastic. We're lucky to have you, Kim. So,
thanks, Amy.
Thanks. Going to switch gears a little bit here and go back to you, Chris. So drawing from your experience at the Budapest airport, what specific practices or developments did you find particularly exciting or innovative? How do you anticipate leveraging or adopting these opportunities within Calgary's aviation industry? And what steps do you believe are necessary to realize their potential impact for the Calgary International Airport?
So maybe I'll back up a little bit more than that. So it was said that I was a CFO at Wild Horse. And so Wild Horse was a company that we were trying to do in situ coal extraction. And as CFO, I raised $40 million, spent 4 years of my life, and it failed. And I think it's really critical to talk about failures and to accept failure. And so what do I take from Budapest Airport? I take a lot of successes in innovation, I take a lot of knocks on failures too, but the point is that we tried. You know, here, we are testing, a few years ago, we were testing walk-through body scanners. Here, you still put your arms up in the air. Everyone knows that one. 70% accurate, wasn't quite there. Okay. We tried a drone detection system. We tried about eight different systems. The really basic one won out. The cheapest basic one beat all the rest. Or we tried a left luggage, cameras that detect left luggage, so bomb risks, right? We put our heart and soul into this one because there was a local company that was doing it. It failed. We did a fence-to-fence system, worked beautifully. So we did a lot of really creative things. One of our best is probably we leverage machine learning. This is many years ago with a Canadian company over in Hungary, but it's a Canadian company out of Halifax. And this project actually, it would track different variables, so weather and on-time performance of airlines and all these things, and it was predicting for us when passengers would reach our security lane, because we were also CATSA. And it would do about a month, would do about a week estimate, a day, all the way down to 5 minutes. And within probably about 2 months, it was outpacing our humans, and after a few more months, it was about 40% more accurate, and we moved that person to quality. So I guess what I take away from it is just it's not a technology, it's more of a culture, it's more of a frame of mind. And having been that CFO who's watching your cash flow drip down day to day, and I know that uncomfortable feeling, some of your biggest worries as a startup is having a roof over your head, which we could give. But one of the biggest things for big or small companies is having a place to test what you're doing. Because you can test a cleaning robot, we tested many of those too, you can test it in your nice clean lab, bring it out here where the kids are playing with it and people want selfies and other people are trying to ride it outside of the bar, you get new problems, you know, but that's real life. And so I guess, you know, what I take away from there is that culture, which I want to make sure that my own staff have and my ecosystem has. And also for those that have ideas, come here and test them. As long as they're safe and secure, you've got a home, test it here, let's see how it works. If it works, we've got first crack at new technologies. That's awesome for all the Calgarians and Albertans. If we don't, hey, we've done our best to push it a bit further, right? And so I think that's what I take away from it, is more of a cultural and not a fear of failure, which we should never have.
Thanks, Chris. That's great. Our CEO, Brad Perry, has also incorporated that a little bit into our culture and encouraged us to take risks and to have that fail-fast culture and just learn from those experiences. But if we don't innovate and try and test, who knows what we can create and advance. So thank you. Jeff, over to you. Various industry experts have highlighted the incredible talent we have here in Alberta, especially when it comes to the energy sector and alternative fuels. What are the key next steps to advance this technology and SAF development in Calgary?
I go to a lot of sessions like this, and staff or resources are always kind of forgotten most of the time, right? Like it's an important piece of what's going on. You hear about things when you come to it, of course, and see the whatever. So when you think about, and I like going to the universities and getting the students to come up afterwards and going, hey, what do you think? You know, and actually personally, my daughter's interested in aviation, just got into University of Alberta, so I'll tell her there's a NATO test site there. That's cool. But it's interesting to see the new approach to, you know, what is going to take to change this. And in my particular field on the sustainable aviation fuels, I mean, like there's a whole value chain there that can be looked at everywhere from the technologies that need to be developed. I don't know what we're planning for aeronautics here, but certainly we still need to improve the engines, the manufacturing of all this stuff is cool. And these are all things I think that, again, Alberta is great at, right? How do we build those value chains? How do we make it efficient? How do we put this stuff in place? I come back to what I think is missing, and it's getting better in the system as well, is that just that energy system thinking. And we tend to always try to look at this product on its own, but really you need to place it in what the rest of the province, what the rest of the country, what the rest of the world is doing in terms of the energy transition. And I always like coming up with the little nuggets, right? You need people to start getting those nuggets. Like, we're collecting all the CO2 in the hopefully the Pathways pipeline that gets built. Oh, we need a market for all this carbon. That'd be a great circular use of the carbon, right? If we could use it in advanced manufacturing. Boeing makes carbon fiber planes. Like, why can't we use this fiber or bitumen beyond combustion to do that stuff, right? But we need the people to start thinking that way, and I think that's what I see, that energy system and working together as a key element that I think we do well here. But we need to sort of reinforce it a bit as well.
Agreed. Thanks, Jeff. Hamid, SAIT's ARIS, we talked about, recently joined NATO's Diana network. I'm not sure if we defined Diana, so maybe we can touch on that. Sure. But can you also share what that means and discuss the implications for SAIT and Calgary in terms of opportunity growth and further investment?
Sure. So the Diana network at NATO is basically the innovation arm of NATO, trying to support entrepreneurs and small and even large corporations to develop new dual-purpose technologies through the network. Joining the NATO Diana for SAIT was a big deal, right? It was great news for me, my team, SAIT, and a lot of people in Calgary. And I think Kimberly did a really good job in covering how it's going to impact developing new technologies in the province and in Calgary in the future. But I want to highlight two more impacts that this initiative is going to have probably for Calgary. Number one would be international collaboration opportunities, and number two would be visibility. So when it comes to collaboration opportunities, we are talking about almost, I believe, 200 centers across the NATO nations. So this is an amazing opportunity for us to create international collaborations, exchange knowledge, learn from them, and bring the experience here and see how we can better serve the industry in Alberta and in Calgary. One of the things we are planning to do at SAIT is actually going and visiting some of these centers and learning from them how they're developing their ecosystem, learning from their mistakes and success, and then bring that back here to Alberta. And the second impact that I want to talk about is the visibility. For joining the NATO Diana network, you need to meet a minimum level of qualification and requirements. So that brings reputation. The reputation brings visibility. And the visibility helps us to attract more talents and attract more businesses to the province. If I'm a top talent in the job market today, I have a lot of opportunities in front of me, and I want to choose a place that's going to give me more opportunities down the road. So when Calgary is part of that network, that means I would be more attracted to coming to Calgary because I see more opportunities here. And the same goes for businesses, Amy. You know really well, like when a big business is planning to invest in Calgary, they look into different factors, and one of them is international networks and collaborations. So we are excited, and we believe that joining the NATO Diana network will have some amazing impacts for Calgarians in the future.
Fantastic. No, you're absolutely right, and I get the privilege to represent Calgary on a global stage, and it's so fantastic to talk about these initiatives and our fantastic network that we can really leverage here. Before I give you a general question to all of you, maybe I'll say it now as to give you time to think, but what do you think is Calgary's biggest opportunity relative to the aerospace sector? And before I go into that, I just want to share, we have all these ingredients. We have our homegrown carrier here with WestJet, proud to call Calgary home. We're so proud to have you here and expanding and growing your footprint. Of course, de Havilland Aircraft of Canada has also put us on the map globally, an aircraft manufacturer with plans for de Havilland Field, 1,500-acre site just east of Calgary in Wheatland County. We have so many other global companies as well, like Eagle Copter's Worldwide Fleet. This is a global company that a lot of people don't know about that exists here. We have so many different companies in the RPAS and UAV space. We have exceptional geospatial talent and positioning intelligence with a company like Hexagon, Novotel, if you're familiar. And these this technology is all the ingredients that go into that UAV space. And then Hamid, of course, mentioned our incredible post-secondary. So we have SAIT represented on the panel, but just a quick shout out, of course, to the University of Calgary and all their deep research and aerospace network that they have here, as well as Mount Royal University, who's also in the room today, and their aviation programs, and their most recently announced Bachelor in Aviation Management that's going to be starting in the fall for their first intake. So really excited about that. So maybe, because I'm asking all of you, do you want to switch up the order? Who wants to go first? Is anyone really excited to go first? Jeff, do you want to lead? I can repeat the question.
Sure, I was last time, right?
I think Jeff's excited.
Yeah, Jeff, you lead, and I'll repeat the question. So what do you think is Calgary's biggest opportunity relative to the aerospace sector?
I always sit back and wonder sometimes how are we going to attract people back into aviation, right? There's this still tendency going on to it's polluting, whatever, and you hear from the schools too, no one wants to get into it. How are we going to defend some of the, how is Canada going to improve the folks that are going to be used to defend? I think it's technology. I think that's the driver, that might pull those resources back into it. So I think we need, being technology driven and trying out the new things, I think that's what's going to be key successful in terms of getting the folks to come in to do all those, to get to the future that Rachelle is predicting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I was at a conference recently, and they talked about how capital follows talent. And so we need to continue to invest in our talent. We're so fortunate here in Calgary to have the most STEM graduates per capita in Canada. And we also have a young population with a median age of 37. So a lot of energy, a lot of bright minds solving global challenges. So we're so grateful for that. Who'd like to go next? Hamid?
Sure, I'll go next.
Go ahead.
I think opportunities are based on challenges. So if you look at the aerospace, not only in Calgary, one of the biggest challenges that we have, for example, in terms of technologies, trained workforce and talents, right? And I think that's exactly the opportunity that Calgary and Alberta has, because we have an amazing workforce, the trades, engineers, technicians who've been working, for example, in the energy industry for years, and they have a lot of experience that could be transferred successfully into the aerospace. We just need to do a little bit of reskilling, upskilling, and supporting them. So to me, the workforce and the talents in the province, that's the opportunity that we have and the advantage.
Thanks, Hamid.
Go ahead.
Chris?
All right. Okay. See, this is the problem about going third, because now they've taken a lot of good stuff from you. But no, I think there's sort of two main paths. There's the established industries coming here to set up shop. And I think in that respect, we've got space. We've most importantly got great universities. I've worked with these people actually back in Budapest Airport. We had some very big players there. And the number one limiting factor to their expansion and their continuation was staff, was getting the right trained people there. And they're having to fly in people from all around the world because the universities couldn't keep up with it. And here, we're actually quite fortunate that we have that. So I think to set up shop here, it simply makes sense. It's an affordable place. It's got a young, trained population. Now, you need to make sure that the tax system is favorable. And so I think, we have all the raw ingredients for that. And I would predict that with WestJet as, being based here, that you'll see a fair amount of development of this as that ecosystem grows out around them. And that clustering is so important, because once you get one, it starts to attract the second and the third and the fourth, because they tend to cluster, which makes sense. Now, for startups, this is an attractive environment. Now, is the early stage funding capabilities here? Question mark. So we're all talking about technologies, but the financial element of that is super important. And is that strong enough within Canada, and does it have the right tax regulations and the right regulations to allow that? Because you do need to, upon success, there needs to be reward, or else people go to other jurisdictions, right? And so I think if we put that in place, we've got all the raw ingredients here absolutely do it, as long as we give them a home and an ability to test their products. You know, what other city would you not want to live in if you're a startup? You know, I mean, this one ticks a lot of boxes. So I think in that one, yeah, great. Kim.
Go ahead, Kim.
Thanks. All great points. So I would like to, first, before I say anything, is also just do a shout out to our initial partners in the Aerospace Innovation Hub, which is WestJet and the Calgary Airport Authority. So we couldn't be here without, and of course all the funding that we've had from Calgary Economic Development and OSIF and Prairies Can. And so I know when you're looking around here going, okay, great, we're talking lab space, where's the lab? And so the lab actually exists at the University of Calgary at the Life Sciences Innovation Hub, so we're sharing space with them. And then we're also talking about potential extra lab space here maybe with the Calgary Airport Authority. And so that's where we'll be located. So this will be a lot of office networking space, and when you don't need a lab, and then there's also space at the University of Calgary there. But I think also it's important to, like, this is the Aerospace Innovation Hub, and innovation, to understand the word innovation, it's not just R&D. It's also taking solutions from other industries and other technologies and applying them into a problem or a set solution that you have. And so here in Alberta and in Calgary, we're really fortunate because anybody who knows me, they hear me say this all the time, that aerospace is like an umbrella industry. Everything feeds in and out of it. So we need to work with our energy companies, we need to work with our agricultural companies, we need to work with our manufacturing companies. All of them affect and are affected by the aerospace industry, and so I think we're really fortunate to have all of that here and leading companies and technologies here. And so having the large companies come in and partner with us, because we're looking for more partners to figure out some of their solutions, and then bring in the small and mid-sized companies to help work with that. So I think we're really super fortunate here.
Thanks, Kim. And as we near the end of this formal panel presentation, we would like to reserve a few minutes for audience Q&A. So maybe if anyone has any questions, please come forward. And there's Kate with the mic. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. Hi, Amy. Excellent panel today. And I just want to touch on a couple of things. So when Rachelle was talking about the future, the prognostications that she's involved in, and also the sign behind you that says the sky's the limit. Chris brought up probably the most salient point, which is we all have expectations of a better future in innovation and research and development. Great message as well, Hamid. How are we going to move from expectation to acceptance? And I think that's an element that needs to be discussed in part of the research and development programs, the innovation processes as well. What is that human factor to accept what the expectations have been in this industry? Thank you.
Perfect. Chris has volunteered to take that away.
I mean, another core one is, what do we need to regulate? I mean, here we're talking about acceptance of the technology, but maybe there's an element of regulation. When AI has a physical manifestation, are we comfortable with that? You know, if a central network can control all cars and has an AI capability, you know, there's really, really, really deep questions here, and alarm bells are going off around the world. Some of the most intelligent people in the world are saying that things need to be slowed down in that respect. And so, you know, it's an excellent question. I don't have the answer. I wish I did. But I guess I would add to that, I mean, with sort of less impactful technologies, you know, we're going to get through public acceptance by trial and error. You know, I'll tell you a story. We put in a queue measurement system at border control, not here, but somewhere else. And this is a facial recognition system in the sense that it would tell that I've got two ears and a rather large nose, and that so that I'm a person. But it didn't say who I was. And we were using this so that the border control could add and remove staff depending on how long the wait time was. But we had to remove it because they simply wouldn't work, because they felt that we were tracking their time that they're working. And so public acceptance wasn't there, and we had to go back to Bluetooth technology, which was way less efficient. So I think a lot of it's going to be trial and error. And then on the big topics, yeah, I mean, I think governments need to weigh in here in a meaningful way. And we as public, we need to start thinking about what we want, because this is coming really fast, and I'm not sure that we're ready for it. So I think it's trial and error, and some regulation is needed in some topics, probably.
Hamid, it looks like you have something to add.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to follow Chris, of course, but I think it's a great question. But when it comes to acceptance of new technologies, in my experience, yes, we don't know the answer, but educating the public and telling them in a simple language what the new technology is, the risks associated, the opportunities, we need to trust the public. They understand. Yes, it might be a very difficult technology to explain, but if you break it down in a very simple language and educate the public over time, if they won't accept it, when they're educated about it, they will accept it.
Can I just add as well, sorry, I have the fortunate to deal a lot with government these days as well, and I would echo, I mean, if we're looking for staff and resources for what we're trying to do, I think we need to bring government along at the same time, because if the regulators are supposed to be the ones trying to help us regulate the safety and the risk of putting all this in place, somehow we need to make sure that they have the right skill set as well to be able to do that.
Thanks. You want to add something, Kim?
Well, I'll just add one more point that from a defense and security perspective, that's a whole other question, but it's accepting the new and innovative technologies is something that the defense industries in the Alliance are all working on. But they've come to really recognize that they can implement technology and solutions from industry a lot faster than they originally had anticipated. Of course, not to everything, but that is starting to break down, because at one point, of course, military and defense research and development and innovation was far outpaced anything in industry. That is no longer the case, and industry has outpaced defense and military, and so now they're actually really looking to industry to find solutions to help implement to solve their objectives.
That's fantastic, that synergy between all partners. Any other questions in the audience? Oh, perfect.
Thank you very much. Kim, you started to get into my question. I was really curious to learn a little bit more about what impact do you think Calgary specifically, being an aerospace hub, is going to have on the broader conversation about defense and security, not only for Canada, but for North America? And what role does government need to have to play into that?
Well, that's a whole other panel, Colleen. So that is, but to keep it brief, I think that being here in Calgary, also in Alberta, we have 4 military bases here in the province, plus we have Defence Research and Development Canada, plus we have strategic alliances in relationship with National Research Council, with the different institutions, as well as with the Innovation Hub, the Aerospace Innovation Hub. So there is a lot of opportunity to collaborate with our aerospace, defence, aviation, space companies and industries to push that forward. And of course, being a major center for energy is a prime location for sustainable aviation fuel, and trying to figure out where we can better and become more clean and green. And I think what we need to do I think industry is in a very good position to lead the way. We are leading the way, and with the collaboration of government and working alongside government is going to help propel, especially here out west. We tend to be a little bit more forward-thinking. Am I going to get in trouble for this? And
it's televised.
Anyhow, we tend to we're more. I said this at NATO. We tend to be more cowboy. They love that term. So, but they appreciated it because what's happening now is a lot of there's the military and defense and industry, big industry saying this is what we need to do to get to where we need to be, and you have the other industry pushing up from the bottom, and so we're trying to break through that, what I call frozen middle of process, and things need to change. The world is changing really, really fast. We also need to change that way.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I just want to wrap by thanking the panel, but also maybe doing a quick lightning round, 30 seconds each, 30 to 60 seconds each, leaving the audience with one last message and or action that you would encourage the audience to take away with them from our conversation today. Chris, do you want to go?
Fail fast.
Good one. Aerospace is everything from subsurface to space, so it covers everything. So don't limit your thought process when you're talking aerospace.
I still like the system thinking and working together is what we need to do on the decarbonization side.
Yeah, I think to Jeff's point, collaboration. I think aerospace has many elements. Everybody could bring something to the table, so working together to move it forward.
Fantastic comments. I'm sure you all agree. Just an incredible insights today provided by our panelists. Please join me in thanking them for their contributions.
Thank you all so much.
Just, we have a small token of appreciation for all of our panelists here today, so just hand those out quickly while Kate gets mic'd up.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. And yeah, as a token of our appreciation, we have some gifts. Also, thank you so much to Amy for moderating the panel. I'd now like to invite Angela Avery from WestJet to the front for some closing remarks. As WestJet's EVP, Chief People, Corporate, and Sustainability Officer, Angela is responsible for the legal, human resources, and external affairs of the WestJet group of companies. She has more than 25 years of commercial and legal leadership expertise and has led transactions totaling more than $25 billion. Angela's international experience includes litigating war reparations at the United Nations in Switzerland and serving as the Chief Compliance Officer for a Fortune 100 company in Texas. She's licensed to practice law in Alberta and New York and has served on the boards of Athabasca Oil and the Calgary Zoo, YMCA, and Arts Commons. Give a big welcome to Angela.
Thank you so much. And I didn't want my legal background to scare anyone in the room, so that wasn't the intent of that. It is my absolute pleasure to greet everyone this morning and thank the panel for such an interesting conversation that we just had. And also really want to thank Rachelle for her comments this morning and really having us thinking forward with not just our horoscopes in mind, but with a more informed view on what's going to happen in the future in our space. Normally I call this batting cleanup, but obviously the panel all hit home runs. They're doing better than my Jays are this season in relation to that. But I did want to just make some comments in relation to the things that were discussed this morning. Having an aviation sector in Calgary is incredibly important. Calgary's unique, and I know all cities think that they're unique, but Calgary really is unique insofar as we have so many head offices here in Calgary, and we really have no way of connecting with the rest of the world in an efficient and productive way than coming to the airport here and flying off and flying back. We don't have ferry service at the dock at Heritage Center. We do not have passenger train service either, and so for us, having a robust aviation sector in Calgary is incredibly important for the economic and other opportunities that it brings. WestJet does play a key role in this. We are the hometown carrier, and we take our position in the West and in Calgary particularly very seriously. In 2024, WestJet is 20% bigger at this airport than we were in 2019. And if I'll cast your mind back to 2019, that hasn't been a straight line of growth. We had a little exogenous event in the middle of all of that. And so the growth of having 20% 2019 to 2024 is almost like year over year growth. This summer in Calgary, we'll have 1,300 flights per week out of this airport during peak travel periods, making Calgary one of the best connected cities of its size in all of North America. However, our commitment to Calgary isn't just about the flights, and our commitment to the province isn't just about the flights. We are very committed to the investments that we've made here with CED and with the Innovation Hub to create a world-class aerospace cluster. As we've heard today, it has all kinds of ancillary impacts and ancillary benefits for our community. It was really interesting, Hamid, to hear your discussion around predictive maintenance, and that's something that we look forward to partnering with SAIT in relation to and making sure that all of our voyages are safer because of the work that you're doing. Also, the work that SAIT's doing in skilling and reskilling trades to be able to support in this aviation cluster, incredibly important. And I also already thanked Hamid because my son just finished his first year at SAIT and he managed to do it intact, and I think he passed everything. So thank you, Hamid. I don't know what you did behind the scenes to help there. Jeff, too, incredibly important discussion that we had this morning on the C-SAF file and the importance of making sure that Canada becomes a leader in the sustainable aviation fuel space. We know SAF is going to be the easiest, fastest, most efficient way to decarbonize our sector, and it's something that we in Alberta have, as Jeff said, all of the right ingredients to do that. We have the technical capabilities, we have the feedstock, we even have the refining pots and pans to be able to make that happen, and so we need to make that happen, and I'm excited about the ability of this hub to support that effort. We also have an amazing partner in YYC. Thank you, Chris, for your comments this morning. It's really fun to hear about all of the different things that you tried and succeeded at, but equally as important, all the things that you've tried and failed at and learned from. And so that's something that we continue to partner with YYC to continue to innovate in everything that we can do in the actual physical space to enable our guests to travel more efficiently and more productively. The hub, super exciting. I mean, it's something, I've got some stats here, but it's projected, again, looking into the future a little bit, to support up to 180 companies and generate $1.5 million for research and development in just the next 4 years. That's really impressive. That's a really impressive prediction. I want this to be true, and I want everybody in this room to help support that be true. Calgary has already solidified its position as a key player in the aerospace landscape, and we are poised to shape the future of this industry. But we're not done yet, as your hub carrier, it's our commitment that we will continue to grow our partnerships, we will continue to innovate, we will continue to trial new technologies, which WestJet has a proud history of doing, and we will continue to be your #1 carrier and support this city and this province like this city and this province has always supported us. So thank you for joining us today.
Angela, before you sit down, we also have a gift for you. We couldn't leave you out. Thank you so much for everything you do, and to WestJet also, but thank you so much for your time and for your really amazing wrap-up of our event today. So yeah, now I'll just close things off. Thank you so much to Angela, to all of our panelists, and to Rachelle for her incredible presentation to really inspire us today. And it really looks like our aviation sector is soaring into the future. I had to say it. Thank you to our Team Calgary partners for supporting this event, WestJet, SAIT, the University of Calgary, the Calgary Airport Authority. We couldn't do what we do at Calgary Economic Development without your support. And a huge shout out to the entire CED team who put on this first in-person event since 2021, and especially our event planning team. We know it takes a village, especially with so many mics and so many people. I'm really amazed to work and really honored to work with such incredible people every day. You are all more than welcome to stay and network until 12 p.m., but this concludes our event, so really appreciate you coming. Safe travels, and we look forward to seeing you at our next upcoming New Economy Live event. Thank you all so much.